This show is part of the RetroZap.com podcast network.
This is what you can look forward to on episode 153 of Skywalking through Neverland. As we're looking at your page that has the Tusken Raider mask here. Have you ever tried this on?
We drove our real estate agent nuts. It's like, I need a spot for the Death Star in the house.
This blew Richard's mind.
Yeah, how did you get the Emperor's contact lenses?
Well, I tried to get Richard, for those of you that are listening, I tried to get Richard to run when we went to the restaurant for lunch, but he just wasn't having anything to do with it.
No. I stopped running at mile 5.
Right. Well, I can speak from experience in that costume really motivates you to lose weight.
I would think my white whale, if I were you, would be George Lucas's flannel shirt from Star Wars.
That's a good one. Actually, I like that.
Now, let's go back to the story about you buying the Death Star.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls.
Hello, Skywalkers.
Listen.
Neverland.
I only hope that we never lose sight of one thing, that it was all started by a mouse.
Wow.
You are skywalking through Neverland.
Hey, Skywalkers! Welcome to Skywalking Through Neverland! We are the fun-filled Star Wars and Disney podcast that bring you entertaining stories from the creators and fans. And a big thanks and a giant Wookiee hug to our family of Skywalkers who listen to the show every week, post on our Facebook group, and share the positivity about our adventure through fandom. And I want to thank all the Scope Walkers who are watching right now, and the Facebook Watchers who still don't have a name yet, but we'll think of one very soon. Now, I am Richard Woloski, your tour guide through fandom, and now, everyone, please say hello to my sweetie wife, BB-8 Sarah. BB Sarah.
I'm just going to talk like this the whole episode. How would that be?
Or...
Well, Skywalkers, thank you for listening to us and tweeting while you listen as well. I was going to say tweeting while you watch. You could do that too.
Well, they are watching.
I know. We are at Skywalking Pod on Twitter and on Instagram and anywhere you are. So, yay! And we also have our lovely Facebook group of Skywalkers, which we love. And you guys share so much with us.
They've been sharing a lot since today, or this week, was my birthday!
Yay! It's the birthday sweetie this week.
It is I am the birthday sweetie. Lots of big thanks going out to everyone who sent in some birthday wishes to me. And well, look, Patty Hammond sent me this. This, I'm holding in my hand, is a secret squirrel toy. What? This came to our doorstep, and wow, I can't believe, I didn't know they made secret squirrel toys.
And you know what's funny? She found this because it's a 97 Burger King prize.
A 1997 Burger King Premium that you would get in those Happy Meals. I just can't believe it. Oh, that was so awesome. So thank you to Patty and your husband Mike for sending me the secret squirrel toy. Love it. And then we also got something else in the mail. We got a BB-8 lamp.
We did!
This plexiglass BB-8 lamp. That
We're not sure who gave it to us. It might be the Hammonds, but it might not. So if any of you had sent us a BB-8 lamp, then please let us know, Skywalkers.
There wasn't any message. There
No.
wasn't any follow-up. It just came to our doorstep.
And I think it came from like China.
It did come from China.
Yeah. It did. And it's like a plexiglass that lights up.
And it's the coolest thing ever. So whoever sent that, thank you.
Yes. And I agree. BB-8 is life.
Yeah. And now let's thank all the Skywalkers who also came over to Disneyland for our special Star Wars half marathon meetup / Rich's 48th birthday party.
Yeah, we want to give a big thanks to Margaret Mays, Bryn McKinnon, Justin Smith, and Lacey Rompage. Elliot and Lindsay Hansen came, Glenn Stein, Anthony Fox and Rebecca Goodman, Russ Flores, of course, and...
Do you know who wasn't invited?
Who?
Secret Squirrel.
Secret squirrel.
No. And there were no squirrels.
Not at all, except for this one here that Patty and Mike gave me. Love this thing.
Now, we also want to give a big shout out to Chuck, who's watching us. So, hi, Chuck. Yay! Chuck Berry.
Oh.
Yeah, Chuck is watching for the first time. I was just...
Hey, Chuck. My
Yay.
brother-in-law Chuck is watching, and Juan John Jedi just said he and I are the same age.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
So I just want to keep on thanking everyone for everything that you guys do, and especially for coming out to my birthday party. It was just so much fun. We had some trivia contests, gave away lots of prizes.
And we had cupcakes.
Awesome.
And that's where I learned that the boots, that the Ray boots from the actual company were on sale. Thank you, Bryn.
Yeah, thanks, Bryn.
Thank you, Bryn.
Yeah, happy birthday to me, huh? Oh, and Margaret Mays came all the way from San Diego.
It's true.
Happy
Aw.
belated birthday, says
Swara.
Hey, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Yay.
All right, now I want to tell everyone that we are recording from Long Beach, California on January the 18th, 2017. So hello to all of our Long Beach Skywalkers.
Just our Long Beach Skywalkers?
We have some Long Beach Skywalkers listening.
It's very exciting. We do.
I didn't know we had any more Long Beach Skywalkers other than Drew Kaplan, Jocasta Drew. All right, so you know what? To be fair, I'll thank everyone, all the Skywalkers, and I'll start in Seattle to San Francisco. I can go through the whole country. Sacramento.
This is ready now.
Okay, I'm not done yet. Los Angeles, Orange County, Washington State, Arizona.
Simi Valley.
I got a long way to go on this one. You know what? You forced my hand, Sarah. Now I got to thank the whole country, then the whole world. Where was I? I'll start again. I want to thank everyone in Seattle. I want to thank everyone in Arlington, Virginia.
Lake Ontario. New York.
You get the point. Now, tell us what time it is.
It is.
It's 8:12. Good evening.
Aww.
Yes, it is. It is the evening.
Yes.
Like we were saying before we started recording, we have a very, very busy week. So we're recording when we get the chance. But we did make some time earlier this week for our special guest, Gus Lopez.
Yeah.
Now, many of you who follow Gus on Facebook have been seeing his daily Grail photos of all these fantastic collectibles that he has. Not just collectibles like you would see at Rancho Obi-Wan, but he has things like the Emperor's contact lenses from Return of the Jedi.
Crazy.
He has the Slave Leia bikini costume.
Plus all these like behind the scenes photos and production photos that they used.
He's got all this stuff. We don't want to spoil it right now, but just amazing collectibles.
And he has big stories behind each one and how he got them. So that's what's exciting to hear.
And these are all very authentic. I used to work in the special effects business where I knew people who would make quote-unquote authenticated props, but they weren't. They were cast later on, and that was so awful. But he knows people who actually worked on the film and got these props and set pieces and all these fantastic pieces of screen Star Wars cinematic memorabilia. And as you can tell, we're really, really excited about this. So you guys will have a lot of fun listening to his stories.
So also coming up on this episode, well, we just attended the Star Wars Half Marathon weekend, the light side, held at Disneyland, which was super fun, and we did the Rebel Challenge, so we'll tell you all about it because we recapped the weekend with Russell Flores, who is the author of Seen Unseen Disneyland and more Seen Unseen Disneyland, and just the sweetest guy ever. So it's really fun to recap the whole weekend with him.
And we have shout-outs and a Skywalker of the week and things
we want to share.
Things we want to share. Things we want to share. Things we want to share.
All right, well, last weekend we celebrated the third?
Yes, the third Star Wars Half Marathon. Which was held at Disneyland in Anaheim, January 13th through the 15th. And just to recap, we did the Rebel Challenge. So that meant a 10K on Saturday and a half marathon on Sunday. And we didn't really train much this time.
Not at all. Now, this is the third time. The first time we did the 5K, 10K, and the half.
We did.
And the second time we did the 5K and the half.
No, I think the second time we did the Rebel Challenge, we did the 10K and the half.
Okay.
Because they introduced that. Right. And then when we went to Florida for the Dark Side Half Marathon, we did all three because you're there.
Right.
You're
Okay.
like, all right, got to get up, got to do all three to get all the crazy medals. And we got like 12 medals between the two of us for that whole race weekend. It was a little insane.
Yeah, and I think we felt, yeah, you know what? We've been running so many marathons. We don't need to train. Come on. We're pros at this point. We just did the Doctor Strange 10K. We don't need to train. Big mistake. Big mistake.
Huge.
Big mistake. Big. Huge.
Name the movie.
Yeah, I know the movie.
Or people on
Gary,
Facebook.
Gary Oransky says, I just wanted to say, hey, happy birthday, and I'm insanely proud of you guys. Oh, thank you.
Thank you, Gary. Thank you very much. Now, as the Scope Walkers and the Facebook watchers try to guess what movie that is.
Gary got it. Pretty Woman.
Big mistake. Big. Huge.
Pretty Woman.
Good job, Gary.
Good job, Gary Oransky, all the way from New York. All right, now, let's recap the weekend with our good friend and author of Seen Unseen Disneyland, Mr. Russ Flores.
Star Wars Half Marathon 2017.
All right, so it's now 3 hours past the end of the race?
Yes.
How do we all feel, Russ? How do you feel right now?
Well, after a shower, I'm feeling a lot better now. Things have kind of loosened back up.
And you just finished the half marathon.
Correct.
Is that the only race you did this weekend?
Yes, that's the only one I did.
How many races have you done at this point? How many half marathons? No ums. This is a no podcast.
I've run approximately 9-ish.
9-ish? How does this one rate to the other 9 in terms of how you feel at the very end? Because I can say at the very end of this marathon, of this half marathon, I was hurting. I was hurting unlike I've ever hurt before.
That's because I was bad and I didn't train.
It's not your fault.
Well.
We'll blame it on Russ.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, we'll blame it on him.
Because I didn't train either.
I guess once you've done several of these half marathons, this was my 15th or 16th, I was counting.
Wow.
Somewhere in there. So I felt okay. Of course, now I'm a bit sore. But
Russell, being the experienced runner, you were actually training us as we were going along the first couple of miles until you took off on us.
Yeah, I abandoned you.
So being the experienced runner at the very end, did you feel like you hadn't trained, or is it just another day at the office?
Oh no, I felt it at the end of the race. I pulled some muscles about 4 weeks ago actually. Gave it a week, tried running, and it wasn't ready. So I just said, I'm just going to stop for 3 weeks, just let it heal and see how it goes. And I felt pretty good up until about 8, and then it caught up with me.
You mean mile 8?
Mile 8, yeah.
Okay.
It took a little bit to finish, but, I got into a pattern where, jog a little bit, walk a little bit, jog a little bit. And unlike most people think, when you walk, you don't just walk. You're still kind of powering through it. You want to keep your pulse rate up and everything. So, obviously it affects your time, but not as much if you keep things moving.
Now, what was your favorite part of this race?
Probably the 501st.
The 501st?
Cosplayers, yeah. They do so much good charity work. I really appreciate that, and so it's really enjoyable not only to see the costumes, but to see them because of who and what they do.
And it's also amazing because they have to get up so early just to be in place for the runners of the race. So we really applaud them for that. And plus it gives you a great boost between mile 8 and 9. It was just great.
Yeah, we were talking to Obi-Shan, who said that they had to get there that much earlier to be in position. That's some dedication for the cosplayers.
Yeah, because the Rebels were 6 or 7 blocks before. And, they're fun too. I didn't mean to exclude them, and they do a lot of good charity work too. But yeah, they were fun too, and seeing him out with his car behind him, that was fun.
Yeah, the Rebel Legion, you mean?
Rebel Legion,
yeah.
There were the cosplayers who you could take pictures with, and then there was the cosplayers who actually ran, and they're specially modified costumes. Anything stick out?
I don't remember any cosplayers. Well, the cosplayers you're talking about in general, not
the ones running, the ones running marathons.
Yeah,
there were a lot of them. nice to look at, and then there was some that, you know, the costumes, they just threw them together, but, you know, they were trying, and they still look good, and, you know, bless their hearts, they were out there, because I look at that stuff, and I see, like, headgear and all this other stuff, and I just think I would be dying of heat right now if I had that on.
Yeah, there was some beautiful costumes. There was a Barf.
From Spaceballs.
Yeah, from Spaceballs.
I did
that
see
was
Barf.
funny. We saw him. There's some beautiful Leia costumes. Especially, I noticed a lot this time the ceremonial Leia from A New Hope. There was several of those, and they are really pretty costumes.
Yeah, in the family regroup area, we saw that one that I didn't see her running, but looking at her costume and the short step that the dress allowed, it's like, how did you run in that thing? But she obviously somehow did.
Yeah, there was a lot of Bespin Leias, a lot of Hoth Leias.
Yeah, they were cute. And there was a pair of Ewoks who were like the super savage Ewoks. Do you remember seeing this at the 10K race?
Yes.
Yeah, they were holding like pitchforks almost with fun.
It's like the flags with Ewok faces.
Yeah, Ewok faces on top, and they had headdresses, tribal headdresses and things. Oh, and we also saw some Tinkerbells and Jedi robes.
Yeah, yeah. In fact, when we were at the starting gate, the announcer, when the runners would go past them, they'd say, "Oh, look, and there's this person. There's another Stormtrooper, another Darth Vader. Here's some Jedi Tinks." We're like, well, no, stop the race right now.
Yeah.
There's only one Jedi Tank, and she's right over here. But it was the same woman whose name I don't remember, or else I would say it. She made a very off-putting prequel joke, which I did not appreciate.
Yeah.
Something about not referencing the prequels.
Uh-huh.
Like, you know what? Guys. Where's the comment box? I gotta write in about this.
She was just joking. She's
not
actually
funny.
She's a really good person. She's fun to listen to.
What's her name? Clarissa. Clarissa?
I think so. That sounds right.
Okay. Clarissa
explains it all.
Apparently she doesn't.
She doesn't explain the first 3 prequels.
Not at all. Not at all.
But yeah, they're fun to listen to. They have a new guy up on the stage, and they had 2 new people out in the audience, so they were finding their legs.
Yes.
But they're fun to listen to.
Yeah. Did you have a favorite part of the races, Richard?
Yes. All the Skywalkers out there who would say, "Skywalking through Neverland!"
Yeah, that's true. We met up with several people, we saw them along the race. They usually passed us.
I think even the balloon ladies passed us.
So you guys got, "Hey, Skywalking," and I got, "Hey, get out of my way!"
Yeah, a couple of special shout-outs to Carlos.
Yeah, he is Star Wars comic book fan he has Star Wars comic books on Twitter.
Yeah, he was always so excited to meet us, and that for me that gave me an extra burst of energy.
Right when you needed it most.
He was an Imperial commander, but yet he was hopping up and down.
Yes.
So I was like, wow, that gave us a little burst.
And then right at the finish line, Tyler Moore was there waiting for his family, but he also saw us and gave us a big cheer. And same with James Jawa.
James Jawa
at mile 13, along the route, he was cheering everyone on, and we said big hellos to him and his friends who were there.
Yeah, he was giving high fives. I almost pulled him down because this was at the finish line, and I was stumbling across that finish line. If anyone's going to give me a high five, I'm going to grab onto them. And if I'm going down, they're going down with me.
Was Carlos wearing a black Garrison?
Yes.
Okay, I saw them. There was 3 of them.
There was a bunch of them. He was standing next to the sexy Stormtrooper.
Oh.
Okay.
That's true.
Well, I think she was a Skywalker, too.
I think so, because
it was hard to hear her through the helmet, but she was saying, "Skywalking through Neverland, yay!"
She seemed excited as well. So, shout out to the sexy Stormtrooper.
Yeah, and we'll post a picture of her, because she had the 2 pom-poms like they were Mickey ears on her helmet.
So neat.
Yeah, I saw a lot of people with those pom-poms. I don't know if they were giving them out. I thought it was just the cheer squad, but I saw, runners with them. I saw a lot of people with them, so...
For once, okay, so I'm deathly allergic to horses. So every time they have the corral horses out, all the horses that go down Disneyland, the carriage horses, I suppose, every time they have those out, I never go and pet them. There's usually a line, to say hi to the horses and take a picture. But this time there was no line, and I said, I'll stand next to the horse and take the picture for my friend Trisha, who of course does horse riding. So we stood next to the horse, whose name was Chad. No, it was Chad, I believe.
Something with a ch.
It was a C, yeah. And I stood next to the horse, and then I didn't pet the horse, and the horse was like, hey, and started, like, nuzzling me.
It was freezing. My hands were freezing cold, and the horse's breath was really warm. So I was using his nose as a hand warmer. And the hand warmers you gave me were very effective, but Chad's breath was a little bit warmer.
Aww. That's
Very
cute.
good. Very good. Yeah, I was worried about the weather this morning, and it actually ended up not being too bad.
It's been raining all week.
Yeah, and finally the rain cleared up for these races. Thank goodness.
Thank Disney.
Well, you know what they say, if it ain't raining, it ain't training.
Very true. Now, cut to next year at this time. Will you be back?
Oh, yeah. I'm a legacy. I got to keep going, even if I walk it. Crippled.
Do you want to, or is it more of a pressure thing?
No, I want to. I like doing the races, and I like this race. And on this particular trip, I usually come down and just see friends and hang out and do whatever I want. And so it's a fun trip.
What about you, Richard?
Ask me again sometime.
Yeah.
I know, Sarah, we were talking about next couple of races, just doing the 5Ks.
Yeah.
We haven't gotten a 5K medal in a while. So,
Well, the 5Ks have now turned into actual medals.
whereas before they were like rubber.
Yeah.
Right.
So it makes it a little more incentive
Yeah.
to do the 5Ks.
And the one for Star Wars, you saw it. It was the troop transport for the
the
Rebels.
U-Wing.
Yeah.
From
Yeah.
Rogue One.
Yeah, it looks awesome.
It does. It's
I'm
really
like,
cute.
oh man, maybe I should have ran the 5.
I know. But I'm really glad we ran the 10K this time because it was BB-8.
A little
Yeah.
BB-8 spinning medal.
And
He
he
spins. I
spins.
saw that
Spins,
yesterday.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, even the half marathon medals, which you're wearing right now,
Mm-hmm.
got Leia and Han on one side, and you flip it, and there's the Yavin ceremonial medal.
Yeah, so it looks like from afar, the Yavin ceremonial medal, you get up close, and around that middle section, it says 1/15/2017, may the force be with you, half marathon, which is really cool. You flip it around, and right after we ran the race, Richard, we put these medals around our necks,
Uh-huh.
and I flipped it around, and I saw Han and Leia. It was right after we ran, so of course I'm all emotional anyway.
Yeah.
I started almost tearing up. I was like, oh, it's Han and Leia, oh. But so this medal is very special.
Yeah.
I love it.
So, Russell, what's next for you in terms of running?
Dark Side.
Oh,
April.
So
In April.
are you doing the Kessel Run?
Kessel Run.
Oh, nice. So you'll be out there a week after celebration.
Yes. Yeah, it's the weekend after. So we'll be going out there. I did it last year, and it was really cool last year because they were kind of up in the air about, are they doing just the Kessel Run Medal? Do they do the Coast to Coast? And they
Yes.
kept going around and around about that, and they ultimately gave us both.
Yes, last year. So
Last year.
this year, are they doing that?
This year, they were saying that they were just going to do the Kessel Run, but now I'm hearing people are grumbling again, saying that's not right, blah, 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 and, I get it that, the Kessel Run's supposed to be in place of the Coast to Coast.
Yeah.
So, who knows what the final decision will be, whether they give them or not.
Wow.
So,
Okay.
if they don't, they don't. I've got my Coast to Coast, and in reality, people who see the Kessel Run know that you've done a Coast to Coast.
Right. Although, in reality, finishing that half marathon, Dark Side half marathon, and getting 4 medals at once was pretty awesome.
And they were heavy, too.
Yes.
Oh, one medal is heavy.
Yeah, the only thing about the Coast to Coast, I almost didn't get it.
Oh.
Because when I went through, you know how here you'll go through the
chute.
chutes, and you'll get, they'll have the first medal, and you go a little bit further, and then they have the next medal if you qualify for it, and they have them kind of sequential.
Yes.
They had them standing side by side.
Oh.
So I went through, and they gave me the Kessel Run, and then I'm looking for, where's the Coast to Coast, and I happened to look back and saw that they were standing next to it. And so I went back and said, hey, I'm supposed to, I showed him the band and said, I'm supposed to get the Coast to Coast, and he kind of looked at me like, are you trying to pull a fast one here? But then he gave it to me, so that was cool.
Yeah.
But like I said, I don't know. Last I heard, they were just going to give the Kessel, but the way it was explained by Run Disney when I talked to him last year was, if you do light side, go to dark side, you get your Kessel Run.
Right.
Then if you do a third race back at Disneyland, they'll give you a Coast to Coast.
That makes sense.
So they'll count that dark side as the other side to get your Coast to Coast.
Right.
So last year, like I said, they gave them both to us in Florida. in spite of what they had explained to me. So then when I came back and did the Avengers, or the superheroes, I didn't get one there. We didn't get one there. We were kind of curious if they would still have the system messed up and if they would give us a wristband. But no, they had their act together. So we wouldn't have taken it anyway, but, because we got our medal. But yeah, it would have been funny if they started putting a wristband on us again.
Are you going to do the 10K and the half? Or for the dark side in April?
Just the half.
Just the half marathon?
Okay. Yeah. So, and last year was a great race. There was some issues with the course that a lot of people complained about because it was put together so quickly. And
where was this? At the
dark side.
The dark side half marathon.
Yeah, and
I really liked running through Animal Kingdom.
The only thing I didn't like about that was that parking lot.
Yeah, the parking lot was like 3 miles long.
Holy smokes. And you're looking and you're like, where does this end? And it's kept going and going and going. But I know they had some issues with the out and back portion of Animal Kingdom where people were crossing over to the bathrooms and then quote unquote getting confused and jumping back in on the part that was going inbound, so they never ran the outbound and stuff like that. And there at the end, I don't know if you remember, but it had that really bad zigzag all through the buildings.
Yeah, I think so.
So you're hearing them cheering, and you're going, oh, it sounds like it's right here, and you round the corner, and it's not there. And you go, oh, it sounds like it's around this corner. And it's like, you just kept having this, no.
It's that infamous Disney switchback line.
Yes.
You go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. They said at the end of this half marathon that you were hurting. What are you going to take from this marathon to improve yourself for the dark side marathon, marathon?
Don't get hurt and train. Yeah. Well, I tried to get Richard, for those of you that are listening, I tried to get Richard to run when we went to the restaurant for lunch, but he just wasn't having anything to do with it.
No. I stopped running at mile 5. All right, Russ, if any of the Skywalkers want to get a hold of you or buy your awesome book, where do they go?
So I can be found on Facebook at Seen Unseen Disneyland or Twitter at Seen Unseen D. I had to shorten it for Twitter. If you want to purchase a book, you can go to the EC Wed, my bookstore, which is Sudbooks, SUDBOOKS.ESWID.com, or you can go to my webpage at sudbooks.com.
While running, did you see anything that could make a potential upcoming book?
Actually, I didn't. But then again, I was concentrating on not falling.
All right, with that, let's all clink our medals together, and we'll see you next year. So now, Sarah, it's been a couple of days now. How's your body holding up after our Rebel Challenge?
You know what? I have done, I believe we counted 16 half marathons at this point. Mm-hmm. And even though I wasn't trained up this time, my body's kind of used to the whole rigmarole of running. So it was pretty sore the day after, but I can just feel little twinges now. Actually, my back was bugging me yesterday, but other than that, I'm okay.
Well, I feel great.
Mm-hmm. Good. You do?
Except when I get up or sit down or walk or move.
Yeah, the worst part about the half marathon is after you're done, going up and down stairs or sitting and standing, like sitting to standing. That's like the worst ever. Yeah.
So word to the wise, for anyone who's going to race in the future, train. Mm-hmm. Train. Learn from our mistakes. Now, you know who we didn't see for the first time? Every time we go to a Star Wars half marathon, we always see Gus Lopez.
That's right.
Only this time, we didn't see him.
What
And ironically enough, he is our guest this week, and we're going to talk to him right now about his amazing collection of props and prototypes and all kinds of really fun stuff. And let's hear his recap of the Star Wars half marathon weekend. And we're also going to talk a little bit about gold bikinis.
Be our guest, put our podcast to the test. Gather round the microphone and we will do the rest.
How many times have you watched a Star Wars film and thought, I wonder where that prop or costume piece ended up?
Well, if you follow Gus Lopez on Facebook, then you'll have seen his Daily Grail posts where he shows off his amazing Star Wars collection. And now, if you haven't seen these pics, then get caught up right here.
Hey, Gus!
Hey, how you guys doing?
Oh, we are doing great and so eager to hear all about your stories about how you got these amazing items. But before we go into that, talking about your props and prototypes and production crew memorabilia, you also ran in last weekend's Star Wars Half Marathon. How did you do?
I did, yeah. It was great. Yeah, it was fun. I mean, despite the fact that I had like flu over the weekend that hit me just before the 5K, so I was sick through all 3 races, but I did fine. Like, it actually didn't affect my usual range of time, so that worked out okay.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
Oh, man, but that sucks at the same time, of course.
Yeah.
How many Star Wars races have you done now? Because we see you at every single race.
Yeah, I've done all of them. So I did, so they've done the light side. Now this is the 3rd time. So I've gone to all the races, the 5K, 10K, and the half, and then did the dark side last year. So every Star Wars race that they've done so far, I've hit all of them. So I want to continue doing that as they do them.
Nice, and become a legacy runner.
Oh,
that's the goal. Yeah, become a legacy runner.
I wonder what collectible item they'll give us, because I know for the Tinkerbell half, we got a little like makeup cosmetic case.
Wow, cool.
Yeah.
And that was for the 5th anniversary of Tinkerbell? Or
yes.
Yeah.
That was number 5.
They give you perks, too, about registration, right? Like, if you miss registration, they still hold a spot for you, I think.
Really?
Oh, nice.
That's what I heard, yeah, that if you ever not able to register, you can always contact them after registration deadline, and if you're, like, legacy, they'll get you in.
Wow. I didn't know that.
All right, so this means, Gus, that you walked home with 4 medals over the weekend, so probably wasn't hard to find you with all the clinking and clanking.
Yeah, actually, you're going to laugh, but it was actually 5 because I ran the Disney World Marathon the week before. So I got coast to coast also. So I got 5th one in Anaheim like last weekend.
Wow.
You are a madman.
All right, so I want to know for me, what was your half marathon time? Like, what do you usually run?
It's funny. I used to be much better at running. I didn't look it up. I think it was around like 2:15, something like that.
Oh, that's great.
What, 2:15?
I used to be a lot better, but I'm like totally out of shape and just like, I'm doing it to finish it. But yeah.
You're out of shape as our never been there.
Yeah. Anyway, I feel bad. I feel like totally like, all sorts of, people a lot older than me, and I'm pretty old, passing me and stuff. And I feel like, man, I could do so much better if I really trained for these things.
No offense, but do you cheat?
Yeah, I wish. Yeah, cut some of that time would be great. No, I'm pretty good about following all the rules.
Richard, he just runs the whole time.
I do run the whole time.
We tend to walk a lot of it.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I mean, I get it. A lot of people in those races do the photo ops and stuff, and I do that I usually do that in the 5K because the 5K is not a timed race. It's kind of like it's hard to run it anyway. There's so many people and all. And then I try to run the 10. Sometimes I do photos on the 10K, but the halves I usually try to run.
Okay.
Now, which medal is your favorite?
Good question. I think of all the medals they've ever done, I'd have to say the Kessel Run Medal is probably my favorite.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's why we ran coast to coast, just to get that Kessel Run Medal.
It's a Millennium Falcon.
Yeah, and all their medals are just so high quality, and the sculpt is fantastic, and they have got moving parts.
Yeah.
How do you not do it?
Totally. I mean, I know some Stars fans who from other events and stuff who saw me at the dark side with the Kessel Run Medal and said, actually just seeing the Kessel Run Medal on us just inspired them to just go sign up for both races this year. Cause it's like that medal is just awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, love that. But now, I want to talk about your staggering collection you've been showcasing on Facebook. Now, whereas Steven Sansweet mainly focuses on Star Wars consumer merchandise, your collection is largely made up of movie props and toy prototypes. So what was the first piece that kicked off your collection, and when did you start collecting?
Yeah, I mean, there's a quick story of it. I mean, I started in 1977 when the film came out, as a kid, into it. And it was, for me, it was trading cards at first and comics, whatever was available that first year. But serious collecting, I really didn't do, till like the early 90s when I got back into it and, was older and had more disposable income. And for me, it was action figures was that's what as a kid I was into. So I kind of started in the early 90s just trying to complete my action figure set, so my loose action figure set, because like a lot of kids in that time, they collected during a window that there was about I'd say about an 8-year window where they had Star Wars figures available, and almost nobody collected through that whole 8-year window because that's a long range of time. And so I collected, about half of that time, and so I completed my set, and then I just kind of kept moving on to new things. And in the 90s, and it would be like, so I started, once I got kind of the action figures, I would do things like post ads in the paper and try to buy local collections, and it started to really expose me to other kinds of areas of collecting. So I went to the news groups at the time, which were the online forums of the era before the websites and so on, and before Facebook. And I also was in Toy Shop Magazine. And so as I got kind of more advanced in collecting, I like many collectors, you evolve and refine your focus. And so my thing, if there's one theme to my collection, it's I collect what's really hard to find. And not to be confused with what's necessarily valuable. I don't care much about value. I care about just the challenge and just the uniqueness of it, the novelty of really hard to find things. And so I have a few categories I collect in and go very deep in. So those are things like movie props and costumes, toy prototypes, cast and crew items, like awards that they've given like cast and crew members, store displays. So it tends to fall into certain categories, food items, also cereal boxes. So there's certain areas. So contrast to say like Steve. So Steve is trying to be very comprehensive and get all the consumer items. And I'm more after kind of one of a kind items or rarer items, harder to find items.
What would you, is it just Star Wars that you focus on?
Yeah, just Star Wars, which gives me plenty to work with.
Well,
yeah, really.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Now, what was that one movie prop or set dressing piece that infected you with the bug to want to get more and more and more?
The movie props. Well, it's funny on that, when I was like about, I don't know, like 10 years into collecting, maybe like 8 years into really collecting since like, I'd say circa 2000 or so. And I wasn't that active in collecting props. I had bought the Death Star in 99, which was a significant prop. But I kind of, at the time, that was kind of a fluke. That was kind of like, I knew the guys who had it and the opportunity came up and I was like, I want to own a really cool prop piece from Star Wars. And it all worked out really well. But I wasn't actively pursuing props at the time. And for a couple of reasons. One was they're hard to find, really, really difficult to find. Another was that, I didn't have, my network of contacts wasn't really centered around props. The other things, I had met some of the prop collectors of the era, like in the 90s. There's like different generations of these prop collectors, and just being being very kind of honest and transparent. I wasn't always impressed with prop collectors at the time. It was a kind of a slightly older, almost half generation older of prop collectors who were a bit about name dropping stars, and there was like fake items. It was just my initial first impression of prop collecting was real turned off, actually. Just based on a very small sample, though, of prop collectors. And actually, for many, that was one of the factors why I didn't get into prop collecting. And I don't want to, in saying that, I want to be careful. I'm not making a sweeping generalization about prop collectors. What I found, though, was as years came by and I met prop collectors, particularly those who grew up with Star Wars, I thought these are some of the nicest, most awesome people ever. And I really, to me, the community goes hand in hand with the collecting. And so as I started to warm up to the community and I saw this new generation of collectors get into it, I was like, wow, this is a great community, and they're really informed and they're really well connected, and then I just started to learn more about it. And then things like I've been to pretty much all the filming locations of the Star Wars films. I found things on those visits. I had people that I would contact who worked on the film, so I got a lot of stuff directly. But a lot of it's just kind of random. It's just different opportunities open up. Some of it's like I chase down an opportunity I hear about, or sometimes I get incoming just because my stuff starts to get enough attention that I do get a decent amount of really quality incoming offers on things. And then I have good contacts with some of the great dealers who are reliable and reputable and have and great at authenticating pieces. And so it's just through a lot of different channels I get to the point where, and then I've been doing it for many years. So when I show pieces, it it has the, you know, kind of appearance like, oh my God, he's like buying all these things all the time. It's like, I actually don't buy these crazy big things all the time. It's just, it's over many years of buying them.
Now let's go back to the story about you buying the Death Star.
Yeah.
from A New Hope. Let's hear about this.
Yeah. So there were these three collectors based in Missouri. They're in kind of a rural area of Missouri who stumbled onto the Death Star. And the quick story of it was that, which by the way, we've since connected all the dots of everybody who's kind of owned the Death Star. And so the studio was paying for storage of all the props and models and all that from A New Hope. And they wanted to no longer pay rent to store all this stuff for the film. And it was around the time of the release of the film. And they basically said, we're going to just throw everything out. They told the storage place, and it was in Southern California in the Van Nuys area. The story I heard from one source was that Lucas went in, grabbed R2 and 3PO out of the storage, but told them to just throw away everything else.
Oh.
And then one of the guys who worked at the storage unit, who was tasked with throwing the stuff away, kept back a few pieces. There were kind of big flat sections, like the Death Star flat. So the Death Star has like lots of flat panels for the close-ups, but then there was only one 3D Death Star ever made for the first film, and so he kept that too. And that guy, his family had moved to Missouri and opened an antique shop there, and so he basically gave it to his mom to go sell at the antique shop. And what happened was, so it shows up in Missouri, they ship it out there, and of these three guys that ended up with Tim, Todd, and Pat, the three guys, they ended up in Todd had spotted the Death Star outside this antique mall in this like small town, and he's like, oh my God, that's the Death Star, that's the real Death Star. And he takes pictures of it, he starts researching it, and he realizes that it's the original Death Star. So he takes a few days to kind of authenticate it, but by then it sells to a local music shop. So he's bummed, right? The Death Star lands in your small town, and the music shop has it, and then years later the music shop goes out of business, and his friends go by and say, hey, this music shop's out of business, let's go see if they have the Death Star. And the Death Star was still there. It was in the corner. It was the only thing there. They'd liquidated everything else except the Death Star, and they had used it as a trash can.
Oh no! Oh, I don't want to hear this.
Yeah. And so these guys were able to buy it for next to nothing, because basically the Death Star was, wasn't of any value to them. It was just a decoration. So these guys had it like about 10 years, and I knew about them. I had heard about these collectors, and I said, if you guys ever decide to sell the Death Star, let me know. And then this was like about 1999, and they said, hey, we decided we want to let go of it. And I said, yeah, I'm interested. Let's just discuss it. And we agreed on price, and then I flew out there and we packed it up, and they took me around to all these spots like the music store and the antique mall and stuff, and then we shipped it out, had an antique shipper mail it out here. And at the time in 99, we didn't even own a house. We were in like a small 2-bedroom apartment. So I kept it in storage for about a year until we bought our first and only house. And then we bought our house, actually, one of the constraints that we drove our real estate agent nuts is like, I need a spot for the Death Star in the house. So we found this perfect house that the foyer has like the perfect dimensions to display the Death Star. So I've had it since. It's almost 17 years now I've had it. So, actually more than 17 years, coming on 18 years. So
now, what year was it that George had told this storage unit to just toss everything away? Because you would figure after Star Wars became a huge hit, he would want to hold on to this stuff, considering there was sequels coming up, and knowing how George is, I would think he would maybe want to sell the stuff or donate it.
Yeah, it wasn't until Return of the Jedi that they started to get serious about saving the stuff, to be honest. Like, they threw out tons of stuff from A New Hope and Empire. He wasn't focused on it at the time. And I guess, and I don't know if technically I don't know how all the title on the stuff worked at the time, but they ended up throwing it out, so they no longer owned it. But he may not have wanted to pay to store it and all that. So I guess he was just not just thinking about it till Return of the Jedi, and that's when they started keeping back all the stuff. But there are lots of things that were just thrown out, and there are other pieces I got from that era that were. You can imagine the great stuff that got thrown out that didn't survive. There's a couple other pieces I have, like Tusken Raider mask from A New Hope was one of those pieces that came out of those early days where that was gifted to somebody who had asked, according to him, was a truck driver who had worked for the studio, moving things between the different storage facilities, and he had asked, according to him, his story is that he asked George specifically for a Tusken Raider mask. He said, "I just want a piece for the movie," and George handed him. Is what he says. Now I don't, these stories can get, over years can change and be exaggerated, but this guy ended up with the Tusken Raider mask and Luke's belt from A New Hope, which I picked up from this guy. So yeah, it was like they just didn't care in the early days.
All right, now how did you find this guy that had the Tusken Raider mask and Luke's belt? How did that happen?
This one was a funny story. Yeah, so he had contacted me at an email address I hardly ever check. Okay, and get this, so like a year after he had first contacted me, I was just going through that email address, just looking through old emails. And I was like, oh, this is interesting. He says he has a Tusken Raider mask and Luke's belt. Although usually when I see a message like that, I get a lot of those. I go, yeah, it's probably fake or it's, whatever. So I emailed the guy. I said, oh, do you got pictures of it? He said, I'll mail you pictures. I go, well, you just email me, take a photo, cell phone photo. And he's kind of more old school, so he had film photos he took in the 90s of it. So I said, okay, just mail it. Here's my address. So he mails it. And I take these photos, and I sit in front of the Blu-ray this is only a few years ago. I sit in front of the Blu-ray and hold up the photos. I'm like, oh my God, you can screen match both pieces, which is like the ultimate mark in a prop. If you can match it on screen because of scratches and artifacts on it, defects on it, it's like the perfect provenance. You just prove it's the exact same piece. And both on Luke's belt and the Tusken mask you could do. The Tusken mask, because each Tusken mask is unique in the way the bandages kind of go over it, so you can pretty much peg which one it is on screen. And the Luke's belt, every single angle of Luke's leather belt in the film matches to the. I'm like, oh my God, this guy has those two pieces. And even the guy was in Indiana. He had moved out to Indiana, so I was like, I called him back, said, can I see you this weekend? I just flew out there and said, let's do a deal, and that's how it goes, and so I ended up with those pieces that way.
My head is swirling. My head is swirling right now. It's heartbreaking when I see those pictures from Elstree Studios of the Millennium Falcon in the dumpster.
Oh.
Yeah.
It's like someone's reaching into my soul and pulling a piece out and throwing it in the dumpster too.
Well, Elstree, by the way, on Elstree, they have this backlot. This is now a huge mound, because the story goes, and I've been to Elstree and I've seen this mound. The story goes that they just piled all the old set dressing in this massive pile, and now there's grass growing over it and stuff. But the theory is that there's tons of buried Star Wars stuff in there still at Elstree that's just now in the back. It was just they just piled garbage on top of garbage, which was old set dressing from Star Wars and other movies.
Boy, I wish we had known that 8 years ago when we were there on our honeymoon. We got a chance to go into Elstree Studios, and there's the stage manager is showing us all around. If I had known that, I was like, give me a shovel and give me 5 hours.
Well, I went by that section and walked around that, but yeah, it's you'd never, it'd be impossible to get an opportunity to dig it. So,
yeah,
I don't know if it's a tall tale either. I mean, I heard that mounds in the back are where they buried a lot of that stuff, but I don't know for sure, to be honest.
Okay.
And now George just gave this Indiana truck driver Luke's belt too?
Supposedly, yeah. I mean, what he told me was he had known Lucas and he had worked with him on moving stuff for him. Like, it helped him move stuff. And he had asked him he just wanted the Tusken mask. And what happened was, according to him, is he gave him the mask. He said, here, take Luke's belt as well, and just handed it to him.
Whoa. So, okay, so I have a question then. How, if you don't mind me asking, how much was Luke's belt?
I don't usually share that stuff just because.
Yeah, you don't have to. It's.
But yeah, I mean, I paid the guy a lot of money for it. I mean, he definitely did well in it. But in a lot of these things that you have really good benchmarks from previous things that sell. I mean, a lot of people do focus on what things sell in an auction in a high profile auction, and that's usually going to be the high water mark, and that's an extreme case where, and they usually also quote the highest price pieces. So if I'm buying from somebody in that circumstance, I'm not going to pay auction price for it, but I'll come down from it. But I'll make it substantial. I mean, different collectors have different approaches in negotiating price. And with one-of-a-kind items, it's always a discussion about price because it's not like there's some reference guide or something.
Right.
So my approach generally is to offer pretty much fair price given lots of data points. The reason, and it's not just to be noble, it's more, the reason is I want to feel good and have latitude if there are competitive bids. Like there are collectors that will approach these things and lowball. They'll pay like a fifth of what it should be. And it works for them sometimes. And they could argue, you know, okay, if half the time they get the item and they pay a fifth of the price, it works out really well. I kind of I'm trying to balance two things. It's like, I want to get a good price, but I also want to have a very high hit rate. Like I have a really high close rate on props, but I don't overpay. So I do that by paying a fair price. But I have a really good rate of like, if I see it, I'm going to end up with it. So that's my approach. And I try to be very honest with them. This is what benchmarks I'm using to come at this price. This is why I'm going to offer you this nice hefty price for it.
Okay.
Right. Now tell us this. Could you have bought a 2017 Nissan Rogue for the price you paid for
Rogue one?
The Tuscan mask?
You know, ballpark, yeah.
Wow.
Did you ever discern which Tuscan Raider it was? Was it the one that...
Oh, yeah. I can totally pick out which guy it is. It isn't the Peter Diamond one, the guy who attacks Luke, but it's one of the other guys, one of the other two guys that is with that Tuscan who ransacks the land speeder and you know. So when after Luke is attacked and the three Tuscans are kind of going through the land speeder, he's one of the other guys. Yeah,
and then I saw on your Facebook post that you got a bonus with this mask, and you got a glove.
That's right. There was a glove. Yeah, the Tuscan glove was intertwined with the bandages on the Tuscan mask. So I also got the glove from a Tuscan.
Nice.
Wow. So it's like you really made out on that deal.
Yeah, it worked out pretty well. Yeah.
Do you have a favorite story you like to tell when you're talking about your collection? What is your ultimate favorite story that you go to?
You know, it's funny. Yeah, I mean, I say this a lot of times when people come over and visit and I show them things. It's so hard. One of the challenges with my collection and what I focus on is that I don't, you know, that I have so many stories and each piece has like an interesting story. I mean, I shared a couple of them, the Death Star story and then the Luke belt and Tuscan mask, but there's like tons of other stories of, you know, crazy pieces I ended up with, you know, through other means. And some of them are more simpler, like it's just this contact, you know, somebody I knew, and then others are just, you know, more elaborate. But, you know, it's just like every piece has a story, and that's what's kind of fun about it. But that's one of the reasons why I started posting a piece each day on social media, because I think a lot of people, when they come to our house, are overwhelmed at the just sheer quantity of these kind of unique pieces. And just one visit doesn't do it justice. So it allowed me to kind of go in depth each time, because there's just a million stories and there's lots of these kinds of pieces. And so anyway, in many ways, visiting doesn't do it justice, because it's like these pieces deserve time and focus on separate stories.
Now, tell us this story about the contact lenses worn by Ian McDiarmid in Return of the Jedi.
This blew Richard's mind.
Yeah, how did you get the Emperor's contact lenses?
Yeah, I got that from that had changed hands from some collectors who got it originally from a crew member who worked on the film, who saved them after the. So so a lot of ways, you know, a common way that people who collect props get great pieces is they have a good buddy network of other collectors. Because one of the things you find in prop collecting is that the pieces can be expensive, and so collectors frequently will let go of one piece to go buy another piece. It's a common thing, and a lot of collectors, no matter what their income level, a lot of them will do this because these pieces can get expensive, and so they'll need to at times, you know, trade or sell a piece, and that's how I came into it. You know, two different friends of mine owned it prior to me owning it, who got it directly from a crew member, and it was what was interesting to me is interesting about the Emperor's Eyes thing is one of the things I'm really into is how you display and present the pieces, so. The contact lenses just came 2 yellow contact lenses in a contact lens case. That's all I bought. And to me, like a lot of it's the display. And I have certain props I've had, like, for example, some blasters. I have a bunch of blasters from the films and different ones. And for years ago, I would have them like on a shelf and no one would even notice them. But like you put them in a special display and it just pops out, and it just is more impressive. And so with the Emperor's contact lenses, what I did was I had a vision of like how I wanted to do it, where I took a black and white photo of the Emperor's face and then added the yellow color on the eyes, so you could, and then had that photo right next to the two contact lenses at eye level, separated apart at about the distance of two eyes, and framed that way with special matting, the like laser cut matting with like Return of the Jedi logo. And then it just changed the whole impact of the piece, because a little contact case with yellow contact lenses is not that exciting, but displayed like that, it's like wow. So that's what kind of was my contribution to it, really, over but it had been owned by two prior prop collectors who are both friends of mine I trust and are very good at authenticating and working their own networks of people. And then and so that's how it came into my possession. But that's part of a theme of, like, for example, after I had a lot of blasters, I had them on shelves and people didn't even notice them. I got a special display case made with like basically that allowed me to kind of close it off in glass, but it had like an adjustable set of hooks that could hold up and look like a gun rack, but basically a more sci-fi looking gun rack of all these screen used Star Wars blasters. So I did that, to really. And then people come over and are like, oh my God, like I see everything in this, like, Leia's blaster from Return of the Jedi, Stormtrooper blaster, Hoth Rebel blaster, all these different things in silhouette, and Biker Scout blaster, so it's just the display is half of it, is like, having great pieces, but also really displaying in a way that really is impressive.
Yeah, like you did with the Slave Leia display with the costume sketches. You had a few pictures of her. There's some design notes. And even, this blew my mind, a measurement chart of Carrie Fisher back, at what, 21 or something? I think, what did it say? She was like 89 pounds?
Yeah, it says she's 89 pounds.
She's like tiny. I was reading her measurements. I'm like, oh my gosh, I thought I was kind of small, but no.
She was, it was, I mean, you look at those measurements and you say, wow, like someone to model like in exactly this way like Carrie Fisher was in that era. And part of, actually, that was part of the thing was, so I had bought the costume at auction, and it was a phenomenal purchase because it was not only the whole costume they'd used on set, but it included all that photography, slides, sketches, the measurements, and then also lots of prototypes of the costume. So it had different concept pieces, different colors and styles of the costume pieces, and then the wax sculpts of the costume. All of that was in the whole bundle. And when it went up for auction, you had to do some digging to learn what an incredible range of pieces were part of this auction. It was just awesome. And so, and then I had all the flat pieces, like the photographs and sketches, all framed together to present nicely. And then I put the prototype pieces, concept pieces, sculpts together in one display case, and then the full costume on display in with the mannequin. And so that's a pretty major piece, of course. And gets a lot. Another funny thing was, so it arrived in this massive wooden crate with a whole bunch of different boxes of all the different pieces. So the crate was almost the size of a car, like because everything was packed, really nicely and protected. And I contacted a few of my friends to say, hey, can some of you guys come over to help me? Because I had a big, large plexiglass display case that I was going to put the mannequin in, but I needed their help to position it and lift up the plexi case to put on top of the mannequin and then display it because it's sealed in a plexi case. And so I asked a few friends, and about 20 friends came over. And I was expecting like 3 people to come over, but like 20 came over.
Wow.
I'm sure they did.
Right?
And then like every time I left the room, all these like guys would be taking photos and stuff. Of course, I saw them all on Facebook later, all these like selfies and things they snuck when I was out of the room. So fortunately now the costume is sealed in a plexi case, never to be touched again. But
wow.
Yeah, that was pretty funny.
Yeah, and you had some pictures of Carrie demonstrating different hairstyles, and I'm gonna pull a Steve Martin here and say that she was a fantastically gorgeous, beautiful creature.
You can look at those photos of her. It's interesting. In the hair styling photos too. Is it's Carrie Fisher without makeup? Just and you just say, wow, like the photos are impressive, just really unique photos I've not seen anywhere else, of her styling the hair.
Wow.
Is there a way of authenticating the fact that this was Carrie Fisher's?
I'm pretty sure it was, because the way you could do it, I haven't been able to do it yet, is, and sometimes it's impossible to do it, is, if you can, take the costume and then match it to on screen, you could prove, hey, it was used in this scene here. Because a lot of times they have multiple costumes, but what happened was they had the costume on the set, she was wearing it, but she had been losing a lot of weight during this period, right? She was, even while they were filming in England and then when they filmed in the US. And so I think it was early in the production, they shipped the costume back to the designer to make alterations. What I'd heard was because she had lost a lot of weight. And then he basically made new costumes, shipped those back, and kept this one. And so that's how he ended up with it. So it had been used in the early filming, and then he shipped new ones back out to kind of adjust for the size, like because she'd dropped a lot of weight.
Right. Well, I can speak from experience in that costume really motivates you to lose weight.
Yeah, I can totally imagine. I mean, even the photos of the model, like there's other photos you can see in the frame thing of the model, who's a very, relatively thin model, but like it hides nothing, right? So
no.
It's like, I can totally see how that incentive is there.
Wow.
Now let's take a break from speaking with super collector Gus Lopez to hear some shout outs and the Skywalker of the week.
Shout outs, Skywalker shout outs. Which Skywalkers get props from here in Neverland? Who has tweeted out? Shout out. Who has photobombed? Shout out. Who has shared a post? Shout out.
We love it when you Skywalkers shout us out anywhere, either on Twitter or Facebook or Instagram, wherever. So we want to give a big shout out, starting with Twitter, to Ryan Street. He is at Ryan Street on Twitter, and he posted this tweet. I just drove 10 hours, and Skywalking through Neverland made the drive so much more enjoyable. Aww, I thought that was great.
That is fantastic.
So thank you, Ryan. We'd love to hear that. And here we go. Also on Twitter, at Philip Elke, he tweeted, the latest Skywalking pod is a must-listen. Loved hearing about Disneyland Star Tours from Mark Eads. I love Flight of the Navigator as well, because we spoke about Flight of the Navigator there, too.
Yeah, truth be told, I still have not seen Flight of the Navigator.
Honestly, I haven't either. So when he was talking about the voice of Flight of the Navigator, Paul Rubens, I didn't know he was in that.
Yeah, I roll that movie into the movies of the mid-'80s where you have the kids all going on this big adventure, like Goonies, and those like mid-'80s movies. Stand By Me, Juan John says. Yeah, so I clump Flight of the Navigator in with those kinds of films.
Now, as always, we have a Facebook group. This is where Skywalkers get to know other Skywalkers. It's amazing, and you can join it by requesting to join the Skywalking Through Neverland Facebook group on Facebook, and then message us somewhere on one of our other social media channels and say, hey, I requested to join the Facebook group. My name is blank. And then we'll let you in. And I just preface this by saying that Michael Moriarty, he posted in the Facebook group, can't believe I forgot to mention something of such extreme importance when I first joined this group. I, too, am a fan of the monkeys.
Here we come.
And it's a picture of all
4
his
albums. He has the debut Monkeys album. He's got Headquarters, More of the Monkeys, and The Monkeys Present.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so thank you, Michael. That was really cool that you shared that with us.
Yes. I love rolling in monkeys with Star Wars, and so if anyone else has got a monkey passion or got some monkey memorabilia, well, by all means, let us see it on Facebook. Now, I really want to read an email here from our good friend Stephen Howard from Roku Depot. I love this. Stephen writes, I just wanted to let you know how much I appreciated the shout-out in episode 152. It means a lot. And to return the favor, I just wanted to remind you guys how much I love your podcast. You're the best edited Star Wars podcast out there, and the hard work does not go unnoticed.
Aww, that feels so
All
good.
those long hours of editing out the ums and the ahs and the little chats that go off into tangentials.
Yeah.
You know what? It all becomes worth it right now. But Steven also goes on and says it gives Skywalking an edge over others. And with you two as such great hosts and the awesome guests you talk to in a variety of discussions, topics, you guys are definitely on top of your game.
Aww.
A very happy listener, Steven.
Well, thank you so much, Steven. We really appreciate that. And we hope you're coming to Star Wars Celebration Orlando. Because I know we saw you for the first time we met you in Anaheim.
Yeah.
So.
And he had a shirt with all the podcasts he listens
That's
to.
right.
All the logos.
Yeah, so once again, Skywalkers, if you didn't hear our plug from last episode, Steven runs RokuDepot.com, and that's RokuOODEPOT.com, where every Thursday he publishes a whole podcasters in review kind of the week, and he recommends which podcast to listen to. So it's great.
Yeah, what a great service. Hey, our good friend Kevin Reitzel just tuned into Facebook Live. Hi, Rich and Sarah. Love you guys.
Yay!
Love you too, Kevin. Love you too. So glad you're here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, growing up, if I wanted to learn my ABCs, I had to learn it by watching Sesame Street or just pretty much on the streets. But we got a video from Randy Crane from Stories of the Magic podcast. He had sent us in this video through our Facebook group. Here he is teaching his daughter the ABCs, courtesy of the book ABC 3PO.
We have ABC 3PO here. Who do you want me to read about? Who do you want me to read about?
Poe.
Poe? You want me to read about Poe Dameron? Do you want me to read about Poe Dameron? Yeah, okay. He's the best there is at flying through space. Make no mistake, Poe Dameron's an ace. He's a pilot for the Resistance and fights the First Order ties. It's his mission in life to take down the bad guys. So if ever you're in need of a helping hand, just find the black ship with the bright orange band. And who is that with Poe?
BB-8.
That's right.
Randy, if that doesn't qualify you for Parent of the Year, I don't know what will. All right, now with that, let's present the Skywalker of the Week to...
Carlos Munoz. Carlos Munoz. Carlos Munoz.
We had met Carlos during the half marathon last weekend. He was dressed as an Imperial officer, and he was so happy to see us.
Yeah, he was like jumping up and down.
Not just, hey, how's it, guys? How's it going, you guys? He was literally jumping up and down and like, oh, you know what? You just bought yourself a Skywalker of the Week.
And we've got to say that Carlos was part of the 501st group.
Yeah.
That was the 501st cosplayers that line up between miles 8 and 9 and really help you out when you're like dragging.
So once again, thank you, Carlos. Thank you to the 501st, to the Rebel Legion, and all the cosplayers out during the half marathon who had to get up at like 2:30 in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
And a big thank you to Rob Dellinger for composing the Skywalker of the Week every single week. And as we all know, Rob Dellinger is the John Williams of podcasting. All right, now let's continue our talk with Star Wars props collector and author of many books on collecting, Gus Lopez. Now, going back to 1983, right after Jedi came out, there was this making of documentary from Star Wars to Jedi, the making of a saga. You would see different things they would use, the ILM crew would use to animate or do some animatics for shots or rehearse shots. And you have a couple of these items, such as the Yoda rehearsal puppet from The Empire Strikes Back.
Mm.
Yeah.
I used to do creature special effects, and I would make these rehearsal puppets for movies, and they would get destroyed before filming began because they didn't need them anymore. But you have Yoda. How did you manage that?
Well, that was a funny one. So that one came up at auction and several years ago, and And so one of the things that happens in prop collecting is a lot of people are very focused on screen use pieces, the stuff, the pre-production, that kind of stuff. The interest drops a lot when you get into that era, which is good. It helps keep the prices down on that stuff. So I've gotten a number of pieces that weren't technically screen used, but they were used to make the film. But to me, they're still interesting. But one of the things I noticed on the forums, in the prop forums prior to the auction, was people were talking about the Yoda piece. People were like, well, what is that thing? That could be fake and blah, blah, blah. They were going on about this. And what was funny to me was that Yoda puppet is so well documented. Like if you just open up Making of the Empire Strikes Back, there's several photos of it. I mean, it's in documentaries. It's like there's a lot of, you just Google like Yoda puppet, you can find photos of, like there's a lot of reference of that particular puppet. So I was like, this is one of the best documented pieces ever. And a lot of collectors didn't know that. And I didn't really share that before the auction. So I did share that after the auction.
Yeah, and seeing how you were saying that Lucas was just throwing things out right before Return of the Jedi, I'm shocked that they would save this rehearsal puppet.
It wouldn't exactly be the kind of thing they saved. And it was somebody who worked in the film business that needed, I heard the story from someone, I think it was on the thread when I posted on Facebook, but I think it was somebody who, it was like they were either buying a house or paying for their kid's college, or somebody who had worked on the film who had it but needed the money. And another interesting story about that piece. So that was sold in Profiles in History auction house, and they had a TV show called Hollywood Treasure where they would go find props and auction them off on the show. And I went to the live auction when it was sold. And when you go to their live auctions at the time, you would sign releases and they'd have camera crews there, and they would use footage from the auction and their TV show. Well, what was interesting, the auction was one of the most exciting live auctions ever. I had a friend with me who was interested in the Yoda puppet, and I said, okay, I'll back off, as friends frequently do. Say, I won't step on your toes. You bid on it, and if you decide to pass, let me know, but I won't bid on it. So I wasn't bidding on it, and I knew, though, he had a limit of how high he wanted to go. So there's some activity, and then, but it quickly got, it wasn't too expensive, but it got beyond the price point he wanted to go. So he said, you know what, I'm okay with you bidding on it. So he had been bidding against a few floor bidders and phone bidders. And then I started bidding on it. And then it was like really exciting bid with different floor bidders and all this stuff. And then finally I ended up winning it in the floor bid. And it was a really exciting live auction because a lot of times what happens in auctions is not exciting. It's like 3 people on the phones or 2 online bidders communicating to one person in the room. So it's not that exciting, but this was one where like multiple live bidders, and it was really good. So anyway, the TV show rolls around, and they're talking about the piece, and I'm like, oh, this is so cool to have a piece I own covered in this TV show of how they found it and all this stuff. And then they get to the auction part, and they replace the whole auction with actors, like extras that they have mimicking. Why would you do that? Like, this was like the most exciting live auction, but they had all these like, Hollywood people like acting like I think they were actually bidding the same amounts, and it was the same like set of bids. It was just like they had actors do it. I was like, that is the weirdest thing ever. And reality TV, I guess they do that all the time, but it was just kind of funny to watch.
Was it a recreation basically?
It was a recreation, and they might have had their reasons for doing it. I don't know if it was they didn't get some waivers from everybody in the auction or whatever, but for whatever reason they recreated it, which was kind of funny to watch.
I bet, seeing as you were there when it actually happened and won.
Yeah, it was actually an exciting auction to watch. So.
Wow. Now, another mind-blowing piece you have from that documentary, From Star Wars to Jedi, is the 12-inch Luke Skywalker figure that was used in the speeder bike animatics.
Yep.
Who saved that?
So one of the folks who worked on the special effects had saved it. And it's a really cool piece. Well, I love that one because it's a crossover between props and toys.
Yeah.
Toy prototypes. Because they never made a 12-inch Luke from Return of the Jedi, like an Endor Luke. And what they did is they took, the Luke doll from the first movie, and they just made this outfit for him to ride on a speeder bike for the animatics. And if people who saw, I think it was in the making of the trilogy is where you see that animatic. You could see it on YouTube too, but there's that sequence where they show the animatics, and they have like a Boba Fett action figure, and they have playing the biker scout, and then they have a Princess Leia action figure, and they show these action figures on speeder bikes to just kind of do like a moving storyboard of the whole sequence, and they and that was the action figure that was used there.
I just thought that maybe Dennis Muren's son had a Luke Skywalker figure. He borrowed it one day and then returned it that night.
Yeah, I know. It's like and I guess these guys would just be creative and just grab whatever would work, and so that was just kind of funny.
That is amazing.
Well, and I know you've been talking about how you have so many collectibles. Where do you display these items?
They're like all over the house. So
okay.
So
it's kind of like us.
To give you an idea, I mean, so like our living room and dining room are have display cases and frame props. I mean, so there's a style. And people go to like bobacabana.com. They can see, it's kind of a virtual tour of the house.
Oh.
It's a subset of the stuff I have, but you can get a sample of it. But basically, I like having the stuff in the house, but I also want to have functional rooms too. So our living room and dining room have these, are totally surrounded by these things. But I have certain rules and aesthetic I'm trying to go for, like in certain walls. If it's a major piece, I just want that one piece on that part of the wall and not like 8 pieces above and below it. So, it depends. Like in the dining room, I have framed things along one wall, framed on another wall. I have a huge snowspeeder cannon hanging up above one window. That was from the life-size snowspeeder. I have about, I think it's like 15 different creature masks in a display case. I have over a dozen blasters in the gun rack display case. In the living room, I got, a couple costumes in display cases. And so, yeah, it's I have, and some of these I'll run in the future as like daily grails, but like, yeah, so I have the living room, dining room have surrounded with props. Then in the basement, I have 2 rooms that have props, and then 1 room that just has other weird random stuff. Then the second floor, I have a room. All in the hallway, I have a lot of artwork hanging. I have 1 costume on display, and then going upstairs. And then I have a cereal room with just cereal boxes, a bunch of artwork in the hallway. I have the guest bedroom, which is all surrounded in props, costumes, display cases. Then I have a room of toy prototypes.
So you don't have a conservatory, you have a cereal room.
A cereal room, yeah. And then there's another room with props on the second floor. And then a few years ago, we ran out of space, so we built like another building outside. It's kind of like an extension of the garage, but my wife collects other kinds of she collects like Lilo and Stitch toys and other kinds of toys, and so she got 3 rooms in that new building. I got 3 rooms in that new building. So I had a room added for cast and crew items, 1 for vintage toys, and 1 for store displays and food items. And then the hallway has record awards and things. And so, yeah, so we have a lot of space for this stuff, but it fills the space nicely.
Wow.
Yeah, I immediately went to your Boba Cabana page, and I'm looking at your cereal box page, and just looking at the Count Chocula and Boo Berry and Frankenberry, I can smell those cereals as I'm pulling the Star Wars sticker out in 1977.
Yeah. No, it's cool. I love the vintage cereals. It's one of my favorite kind of things. So
yeah, and there's a shelf of C-3PO cereals. Oh. And a few years ago, I had found my sealed box of C-3PO cereal, and I thought, I just wonder what it's like inside. So I did get a razor blade. I opened it up, and the cellophane bag that once housed the cereal was now empty.
Oh, really? Wow. It disintegrated?
I don't...
Something ate it.
There's bugs got in it and just ground down.
Oh, wow. So there's a funny story about C-3PO cereal. So a couple celebrations ago in Orlando, my friends and I put on been doing this thing called the Archive Party for the website I started, the Star Wars Collectors Archive, which was, by the way, the first Star Wars collecting website ever on the internet in 1994. And anyway, we put on this big party every celebration, and at the kickoff party we divvied up different things to do, and I came up with this idea of a C-3PO cereal eating contest.
Oh no.
No. And so I opened a bowl of a box of C-3PO cereal, and we got 5 people who signed up for the contest. So the contest was we'd fill a whole bowl of the cereal and pour milk over it, and the first one to finish a bowl of 1984 cereal would win the contest. And I was amazed we got anyone to enter it. And
Did you make them sign insurance waivers?
Well, that's funny you asked that. I had one friend draft something so that we wouldn't get sued if anyone died or got sick. So we did cover our bases just in case. No one got sick, fortunately. So it was hilarious. So everybody's just cracking up as these guys are wolfing down this like old cereal, and so I opened up a box of it, and I still have other boxes of this stuff. But what was really to me the really funny part was after they ate whole bowls of this cereal and like no one got sick, about 20 different people reached into the bag and wanted to just try a handful just to see what it tastes like. And so because I was holding the bag, and you said, yeah, grab a handful. And all these people were grabbing handfuls just to try it. And after all these people tried it, I'm like, oh, what the hell? I'm going to try it too. I might as well try it. And I tried it. I go, you know what? This is not as bad as you would think. It was like a stale cereal. And that was it. It was just like a stale cereal. I'm like, wow, it's a 28-year-old cereal. And yet somehow it's like only tastes like stale cereal, which I thought was really shocking. I did not expect that it only tasted like stale cereal. I expected something far more foul and disgusting. But
yeah.
So the fact that yours didn't disintegrate and mine did, I'm led to believe that a couple of bugs had gotten in and had their way with it.
Yeah, and the bag I had was sealed, so I think it kept things out and kept it from disintegrating. I have heard of cereal when people. I usually keep most of my cereal boxes without any cereal inside, but I have a few sealed boxes of 3POs. But yeah, I mean, I've heard that if it has an opening and stuff, then air gets into it, moisture, and it can disintegrate. And that does happen. Sometimes, actually, this happened to Steve Sansweet. Actually, he had a box of Blueberry that he decided to, I guess, open up, and the Blueberry cereal and the plastic had all disintegrated into this like blue gel at the bottom of the cereal box. Into one like weird chemical compound from another world or something. And so yeah, a lot of times this cereal is like, that's why food collectors generally don't keep the food, because it can really go bad. But yeah, I had some boxes of the cereal where it's like it was fairly well sealed, so it got stale, but it didn't get other elements kind of mixing with it, like bugs or whatever.
Yeah, my bag was totally sealed too, so I'm not sure how they got in there. But after I saw what happened there, I immediately went over to my Pepperidge Farm Return of the Jedi cookies and opened those up, and they just had congealed into this one big ball of cement.
Oh my God, that's so funny.
Yeah, I've never been so disgusted. So at that point, it's like, okay, I gotta open up all my food items, including all the cans of Pepsi that I'd saved from 1999, and just start draining everything. Now, what do you think is the rarest item you have in your collection in terms of merchandising?
And of course, because a lot of the stuff I have is one of a kind. They're kind of equal rarity in that there's only one of. But in terms of like products sold commercially, I do have a lot of things that were sold to the public, but that so far only one person has found. Examples of that would be, I have certain cereal boxes. I have a Blueberry box from the U.S. that nobody's ever found another one of that box. I have 2 boxes from Canada that nobody has ever found. A lot of it's on my food items, and then some of my cast and crew items. So those weren't even sold to the public. The cast and crew items, I have a few cast and crew items that are so far nobody else has found examples of. But food items, I have dog chow stickers from Australia. They made these like dog chow stickers. Really hard food premium. First of all, it was dog food. Second, they came in like huge bags of dog food. So you had to have a dog that ate a lot of food for you to keep buying stickers to get enough of them to get the full set. So Steve Sansweet has a full set of these stickers. And I helped him complete his set. I had one of the stickers he needed, and I traded that to him. There's also like a TV dinner box from the late 70s that Duncan Jenkins has. There's 2 different ones, a Safari Supper and a Sundown Supper. It's this obscure regional food brand that did a TV dinner for a Star Wars promotion. And for years, it was like my holy grail. I have to find this thing. And I did find one on eBay. Actually, there's a funny story about that one, too. So I found one of these boxes on eBay. It was the 3rd of those boxes that's ever turned up. And I when it came up on eBay, I put like this insanely high snipe bid on it. Like I was like, I am taking this. I don't care how much it costs me. I am definitely ending up with this. This is so hard to find. And the auction ended it was like a Friday afternoon, and I was that weekend I was going to Rancho Obi-Wan. I flew into the Santa Rosa airport, which is like fairly close to Steve's place, and so Steve picks me up at the airport, and I'm like getting off the plane. And he's like, "Did you happen to bid on a TV dinner?" I was like, "Yeah, in fact, I won." It turned out Steve was the underbidder, and then he asked me like, "Was I even close?" I said, "You weren't even close." So he and I generally we actually help each other all the time finding stuff. So it was kind of this accidental competitive situation, but a lot of like really advanced collectors do help each other out all the time, and we usually help each other out. But it was kind of funny, like you think, "Oh yeah, that was me. I bought that. I won that auction."
Yeah, I was wondering why he was glaring at you at the Rancho Obi-Wan Gala a few weeks ago. Now, when fast food stores have their premiums or cereals have their included in this box, do you still buy the item? Do you still buy the cereals, or do you go to the McDonald's and get all the stuff, or do you just go to eBay and get everything now?
No, I buy it at the for more modern food stuff. I get pieces I like. I don't get everything. I get things I like, and then except for cereal, I get cereal boxes from everywhere in the world, and I go to the stores to buy it. I mean, if I have gaps in the things I can't find, I'll go on eBay. But like, I'll give an example. So Force Awakens. So I've been since the prequel. So since Episode 1, I've built this massive network of contacts all over the world that help me find cereal boxes in all the countries.
Wow.
And they've done cereal boxes in lots and lots of countries. So for many of these movies, it's over 100 countries that have cereals, different cereals. And so for Episode 7, I had over 300 people looking for me all over the world for cereal boxes, and about 100 of them found boxes. But I got boxes from everywhere. I mean, from Singapore and Russia and Turkey and Italy and Canada and Chile, and it was just everywhere in from Trinidad and Tobago, and all these places had Force Awakens cereals, different ones. And so I had this huge buddy network go find me these cereals, because I'm not going to travel over the world to find them, and they're not going to appear on eBay because people don't save cereal boxes. They're not thought of as collectible. And so I just have to build this buddy network that goes finds it for me. There's wonderful, Star Wars friends all over the world. That's how I keep getting cereals from all over the world.
And you've hosted many collecting panels at Star Wars Celebration conventions where you have your little tiny cereal box parodies.
Yeah. So I've at every Star Wars Celebration since Celebration 1 and all the international ones, I've run the panels and the collecting track for Star Wars Celebration. So I pick the presenters, and we've started doing giveaways fairly early on in Celebration. So that's included like parody cereals we did one year. So I put together the collecting program for each celebration, and I will be doing that for Celebration Orlando. I just had a whole bunch of submissions come in for the new panels, and I'm going to be deciding those soon, and we'll be announcing, the panels for Celebration Orlando.
Ooh, exciting. Well, okay, so looking at your collection, you had mentioned before you had a white whale that you actually got, which was the TV dinner.
Yeah.
So do you have a white whale now? Like, are you looking for something?
I have like a school of white whales. Yeah. So I'll give some examples they're in different
categories,
just different areas of collecting. So in terms of prop collecting, I guess for me, I really am really eager to get more helmets. So I have like a Stormtrooper helmet, but the helmets are really tough. I'd love to get a TIE pilot helmet or an AT-AT driver helmet from the original films. Those, and there's a few of them out there, not many, but I would really love to get one of those. On toy prototypes, which is one of the big things I collect, they made a mock-up Rebel Blockade Runner vehicle for the action figure line in the 80s by Kenner, and the prototype of that has never been located, but it's been featured in photography. They also made a vehicle from Droid series called the White Witch, which was that's that vehicle. They also made a prototype of that. In terms of cast and crew items, there's an X-Wing shirt they made for ILM from the first film. So I have a lot of the crew t-shirts. I have actually a pretty good collection of those, but it's about the only one I'm missing is the ILM X-Wing t-shirt. In terms of cereal boxes, I mentioned I had those 2 vintage Canadian ones from the late 70s. They actually made 7 different ones from General Mills in the late 70s. So there are 2 different Cheerios, Count Chocula, Frankenberry, Lucky Charms, Trix, and Cocoa Puffs. Nobody has ever found any of the other 5 or duplicates of the 2 I have. So I want to find those other ones. So there's 5 cereals I'm missing from Canada, and then 1 from Australia, Wheaties from Australia. So in each area of focus I have, there's always that white whale that I'm after.
Wow.
I would think my white whale, if I were you, would be George Lucas's flannel shirt from Star Wars.
That's a good one. Actually, I like that. Yeah. That'd be cool.
And I'm sure he still has it too.
Yeah, he's probably got a bunch of them.
Well, we've got a whole bunch of books in our collection that you and Duncan Jenkins have written.
Yeah.
Would you ever put out a book of your own private collection?
That is an idea. I definitely have toyed with it. Maybe at some point. I mean, the thing is, I'm still in massive accumulation mode, so it might be good if, I and my wife kind of jokes about this because I've been saying to her for years now, for decades, at some point, this Star Wars thing is going to taper off. I'm going to stop finding cool things. And then, it's this famous last words. But here's the thing that's weird is that, about it is that I really do expect there is a point where you get diminishing returns, where it's just really hard to find stuff anymore, or it's too expensive. It's either too expensive or it doesn't happen. And for many collectors, that's actually the case already, because if their tastes are very narrow, that can happen. But it's not happened to me because as things get harder or more expensive, my network also expands. So I have other things counteracting it that have allowed me to continue to find a lot of great stuff. So it's never slowed down. So my wife jokes about it because it's it never slows down. It's if anything, it's accelerating. So at some point when it does slow down, I do believe at some point it's got to, because some of this stuff is just getting impossible to find. Then, it might make sense to do something like that. We'll see where it goes. I mean, I've been doing this Daily Grail thing, on Instagram and Twitter and Facebook, because as I mentioned, I just started doing it in November because it's actually really kind of interesting. What prompted me to do it was I was doing a Facebook, a Facebook Live, video. I was just going around the house with my iPhone, just giving people a tour of the house on live video. And I was like, and this is going to seem kind of obvious when I say it, but this is how I think. I'm like, I actually have a lot of pretty good stuff. That was hitting me.
Yeah, you do.
It seems kind of obvious. How can you not know this? But when I did it, I was like, you know what? I'm going to just start posting one a day and see how many days I can keep doing this. And I started doing it. And then I started working out the math of the items. I'm like, I can probably do this for at least a year, where it's one a day where each piece is just a killer piece. And I'm going to just try this. So I've been doing it since November. So it became this thing. But I've got what you've seen so far is the tip of the iceberg. There's a lot more stuff to show.
Wow. And 10 years later, you're still working on it. And I'm sure on October 30th, 2012, when Disney bought Star Wars, your wife just threw up her hands and said, "All right, forget it." Now that Disney owns Star Wars, it's never ending.
And there's another movie coming along.
Yeah. Well, she collects stuff herself too, so she can kind of relate, which I think makes it a little bit easier.
Understandable. Yeah. Actually, it's kind of funny because, Richard, you were the big collector when we got married, and I've actually calmed you down, without meaning to.
We've just burst at the seams. Yeah. I'm sure you know exactly what I'm talking about. Our house is just wall-to-wall stuff piled everywhere, and gotten to the point where I can't even fit another Cocoa Puffs sticker in here.
Yeah. No, my wife's an enabler. She every time I'm on the fence, she's like, "You should get it. That'd be a great piece." So that's a good thing.
Yes.
And even when we go to Target, it's we must resist the toy aisle. Must resist the toy aisle.
Yeah.
Now I see on your Flickr page here, there are people touring your house. So Do you have tours regularly?
Not really to the public. So I do, because of the nature of this stuff, I can't open it to the public. But there are a couple circumstances. We did a few years ago. We did a big party where we invited collectors from all over the world, just the big collectors, to Seattle. And Seattle, in addition to my collection, there are some collectors here who've got some pretty cool things. And what we did was we planned like a 4-day event where we toured lots of different homes and did lots of events and had collectors from all over the world descend on Seattle. So it was about 150 people that came over. And a lot of the photos are from that event. We'll host parties like about once a year. There's like this big comic convention in Seattle, Emerald City Comic Con. Every year I host a party around that convention because you have a lot of out-of-town people and I invite usually all the Seattle area Star Wars groups. So that'll be like the Collectors, the 501st, Rebel Legion, our Two Builders, all those, the whole crew of Star Wars people, artists. They're there, dealers at the show who I know, and we'll do like a big Star Wars party because we're not far from the convention center. So that we've been doing the last few years. So I'll occasionally do parties and stuff, but it's generally like I know the people coming over. Like it's either people I know or they're friends of friends or something. Like I've vetted them as like true Star Wars fans. So I don't really want to open up to the public. Right. But I loan things to museums too. So like there's a museum in Seattle that has like pop culture items. And I've loaned various pieces to them. I have a few pieces on loan to them right now. They're on display there. And so that's one way the public can see some of the stuff.
Okay.
Wow, and I love the fact that most of your items are behind glass, whereas Steven Sansweet, his stuff is out in the open, and I would flip if these strangers came and touched my stuff.
Yeah. I don't have everything that way, but definitely the higher end pieces are generally behind cases and stuff. Because when you have people over, you have to kind of think about those things, and sometimes, if people come over with kids or something and the kids grabby and they, so having things in display cases is kind of nice to have it, behind display cases.
Definitely. Okay. So I have a question because we're looking at your page that has the Tusken Raider mask here.
Yeah.
Have you ever tried this on?
I did. Yeah, I did try the Tusken mask on. It's huge. The mask is really big. And that's the thing. The masks they made for New Hope were massive. And the actors they had play the Tuskens were these very tall guys. So it actually has leather and aluminum pieces, and it's a very heavy mask, and it's actually very front heavy because the eyes, the mouthpiece, and the things on the head are all made of metal.
Jeez.
So it has some serious heft to it.
Wow.
Oh my goodness. Wow. I noticed you get the Tusken gun.
I have a Tusken gun from A New Hope.
How many screen used items do you have from The Force Awakens and Rogue One?
Really not anything. I mean, for a couple reasons. I mean, nowadays they're really tight on keeping the first thing. The second thing is that I have a pretty strict policy. Like if something is lifted off a set, like I don't want it. Like I don't want anything stolen from the production. Like I just don't want to own it, even if and so that's one of the reasons I don't have some of that stuff. I mean, if something is thrown away, if something's gifted to somebody on the crew, that's a different story. And so eventually maybe some stuff from Force Awakens or Rogue One will surface through those channels. But particularly during the production, I don't want to touch it. Like I just don't want stuff that was lifted from the set.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. And it's got bad karma all around it. You don't want that.
Yeah.
All right. Now, we're going through these photos here, and I could keep you on Skype for another couple of days. But, let's wrap it up here because my mind is blowing up here.
Okay. I have one last question, actually. Yeah. So you're big on displaying your items. Where are you displaying your Star Wars Half Marathon medals?
Good question. So let's see. I don't know if I have it in.
I'm expecting something big here.
Yeah, I have. I mean, I don't know how. I'm looking on my site here just when we're talking to see. Do I have a photo of it? Yeah, I have. It's in the hallway. We have. So what I did actually, and I could snap a photo for you and send it. But basically, in the hallway, we have this little bookshelf built into the wall. And I take all those helmets. There are these little Star Wars helmets that have been made by Riddell, Gentle Giant, and Master Replicas made helmets over the years, all in the same scale. I don't know if you're familiar with those collectible helmets.
Yeah, I have
and
some.
So I have all the full set of those helmets, and I just put the medals around their necks and hang them on this shelf. And so that's how I display them. And see, I might have a photo of it. The photos you see on that link I sent are not comprehensive, so we'll probably doesn't have those. But anyway, I have it in the hallway, and anyway, it has all the medals around the neck of those little helmets.
Oh, well, that's a good idea.
Now, if our Skywalker listeners want to reach out to you and ask you any more questions or just say hello or find out about your books, where do they go to find you?
Yeah, they could go. If they want to go to the Star Wars Collectors Archive, my website, the URL is SWCA.com. So which stands for the Star Wars Collectors Archive. So SWCA.com, or they could you can email me too at guslopez@gmail.com if people want to email me, or they can find me on Facebook too.
Are you on Twitter?
I'm on Twitter as well.
What's your Twitter handle?
Toys R Gus.
Toys R Gus.
Toys R Gus. Oh, how cute.
Yeah.
It used to be my domain name until that's a whole other story for maybe another day, but Toys R Us had actually a very famous legal action against, well, it was funny. I used Toys R Gus, which is not an R Us trademark, and I would argue is not infringing on their trademark. And in the late 90s, they sent like a legal threatening letter to me over using that for a domain name. And so what I did was I posted something on my site saying I got threatened legally by Toys R Us, and their lawyers had put an email address on their letter. So I put a mail to link. I said, contact their lawyers if you have an opinion about this. So the lawyers got flooded with all these people, like hundreds of people contacting them, outraged that they were doing this. So the lawyers had first started contacting me saying, threatening, and then they wrote back. He goes, "Hey, we can discuss this." They finally started backing down because they were just getting inundated with all these emails from people all upset that they were going after me. So anyway, but I used to use that as, it used to be my website used to have that domain name, but it doesn't anymore. But I still use it on Twitter.
Yeah,
okay.
And your Star Wars Collectors Archive is a fantastic site, and I thank you once again for helping me when I was writing my StarWars.com article about the Star Wars lunchboxes, and it was a treasure trove of information there.
Yeah. Pleasure to help people with that.
Oh, great. All right, Gus. Well, I need to go and soak my head because it's just throbbing with information. And I love the stories. And when you started posting your daily grill photos on Facebook, I thought, we got to get him on the show. We've got to find out the stories behind each and every prop and article and prototype.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
All right. Well, with that, good luck at the Dark Side Half Marathon in April. But we'll see you beforehand at Star Wars Celebration Orlando.
Yeah, we'll see you at Celebration.
Bye. Well, that wraps up episode 153 of
Skywalking Through Neverland.
We would like to thank Gus Lopez,
Russ Flores,
and all of you Skywalkers for taking the time out of your schedules and watching and or listening or both. We really appreciate it.
Especially when it's late at night. Especially for you Floridians.
Yeah, my cousin just joined, Mike Agdenlog.
Oh, yeah?
Hey.
Well, now we are part of the Retro Zap family, where you can find awesome shows like Brews and Blasters,
Beltway Banthas,
the Deuce Cast Movie Show,
the Techno Retro Dads,
and Talking Apes TV, which we're going to record the next episode tomorrow.
Awesome! And as a side note, this is not part of Retro Zap, but Fangirls Going Rogue, we just released our episode 40, talking about Carrie Fisher and Star Wars Rebels, and a whole bunch of cool things. So we just love the female perspective on Star Wars.
Good deal.
All right, Skywalkers. Well, if you want the conversation to continue every week, we are on social media everywhere. We are at Skywalking Pod on Twitter, on Instagram, on Periscope. And we have our lovely Facebook group, which is amazing. It's full of very nice people who don't talk about politics.
Or sports.
Or if they do, it's just Star Wars and sports or something. So we love our Facebook group, and if you want to join that, if you haven't already, please head to Facebook and search Skywalking Facebook group. It should pop up. You can request to join, and then, this is a 2-step process, people. You have to go message us somewhere on other social media and say, hey, I requested to join the Facebook group. Please let me in. I'm not a weirdo. All right? You can do that, and then you'll be able to join the group.
And as Jay Pitty just said, if you want to talk Palpatine politics, well, you can go right ahead.
Yes, that's true. All right. So you can also email us at share@skywalkingthroughneverland.com if you'd like to do that as well.
Or, if you're so inclined, you can go over there to iTunes and leave us a review. We want to hear what you like, what you don't like. We're not going to tell you to leave us a 5-star review because we want you to be honest. We're not going to tell you what to do.
That's true.
All right, now, with that, gotta say, listen to our outtakes and conversational bloopers right after our credits.
I know.
Always fun.
Yes, I know that a lot of people, that's their favorite part. And now, I think that you should always remember.
And then after that, you can remember to...
Neverland on Alderaan.
Some imagination, huh?
To our Skywalkers and Tweetwalkers, thanks for listening. Skywalking Through Neverland is created and produced by Richard and Sarah Woloski. Original music by Rob Dellinger. Creative consultant Mark Augushowitz. Technical advisor Peter Heitman. Facebook administrators Donald Wicks, Joey Pittman, and Norma Heitman.
Skywalking Through Neverland is intended for entertainment and information purposes only. Any sounds, music, and clips played during this podcast are the property of their copyright holders. All original content is property of Skywalking Through Neverland, all rights reserved. Sorry, had to be said.
We've never ran into him at the grocery store, though. The magic begins, says Timothy McMahon. Thank you, Timothy.
All right, we're trying to make it begin.
Okay.
Oh.
And it has begun.
All right.
We're 10 seconds in. Let's do this
so
thing.
Behind. Hey, Gary Aransky just joined us.
Oh,
Average
yay.
Intelligence.
Wow.
On Facebook.
Amazing.
Hey, everyone.
All right, here we go.
Yes, good old Long Beach. A lot of big thank yous coming the way to a lot of Skywalkers.
Say that once more.
I will. I'm not sure where to pick that up, but all right. Who else do we have coming up?
Well, on this episode,
Wait a minute. Let me do that again. All right, so I'll do the also coming up. There we go.
That worked out, right? Oh, Dennis Keithley. Yay! Oh, hey, see, Russell, we just talked about you.
We just talked a lot about... Oh, you know what? Russ, we're about to intro your piece, too.
Yep. Okay, here we go.
All right. This is us, where we're talking... This is us and seen, unseen... Unseen... Seen, unseen. Okay.
We do preface it there.
Yes. Oh, I know we do. All right. Where were we? This is where the editing comes in. Am I boring you?
No. It's late.
You just yawned.
Shh. It's late.
It's a very silent yawn.
No, I know.
Okay. Oh, we're recording. Waiting on you, Russ. Waiting on you. No hurry. But if this makes the blooper reel, you'll know.
Because normally I have all this stuff kind of posted on my computer. When you guys ask me this question, I have it all prepared when podcasters ask.
That's from, yes, I only run when chased, says Dennis Keithley.
Oh, that's from Real Genius.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Okay. We're up late. Oh, look how
they're
cute
up late,
that is.
yes. This is the only chance we got to record. If we didn't record right now, the show wouldn't be going out until next week.
It's true.
Yes.
Darn it.
Roland Skywalker of the Week.
Heather Hunt just joined.
Heather Hunt. Boy, you guys are up late.
Yeah.
What time is it? It's 8:30, so it's 11:30 now.
11:30 over there, yeah.
Well, thanks for tuning in so late. Sorry we're so late this week.
Yeah, it happens.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, roll out of Skywalker of the Week.
But bottles, I have bottles of soda. Like you might have seen on my page, but I have like a six pack of like the Coke from Canada from 1978, sealed bottles, Coca-Cola bottles from Canada with the Star Wars bottle caps, and the bottles are okay; those can last a bunch of years, but the cans don't last.
Okay.
Yeah, luckily nothing had happened before I got to them because I know they can
explode.
puff out and then explode, and that would have just ruined everything.
Exactly, that's what can happen. Yep. Totally.
Yeah, when Sarah and I go to the supermarket, we always head for the cereal aisle because I'm conditioned since the late 70s to head for the cereal aisle to see what Star Wars premiums and what boxes have Star Wars artwork on them. So we always head for that cereal aisle. And right now, I'm just mesmerized by your cereal page with the Count Choculas and all the monster cereals. Did you find these boxes in mint condition, still glued, or were they flattened?
It varies. So some boxes I have, near mint condition. Some, have some wear. Some I have as box flats. I mean, sometimes people who are employees of like General Mills or Kellogg's save box flats, like unfolded boxes. So it's all over the place. I usually try to get the best condition one. So if I get multiples of a box, I'll upgrade it. But most of them are in pretty nice condition. But, part of it was very early on, I was just relentless at finding all the different Star Wars cereal boxes because it's really, really hard to collect that stuff. People don't save cereal boxes. And it was just a big focus area of mine starting in the 90s. And I was just determined to get every Star Wars cereal box I could find. And some of them are really, really tough. Like they made, so for the first 3 movies, they made cereals in the US, Canada, Great Britain, Australia, and New Zealand. And finding the vintage ones in the U.S. are hard enough. Those other countries are just like smaller populations and less of a collecting culture, and generally homes that aren't as big as they are in American homes where people save everything. So yeah, it's like really, really tough to collect. But I've managed to kind of put the set together by networking and researching this stuff.
Now, here's an unusual question: was it hard to find an insurance company to insure your collection?
There aren't many that do it. I mean, I do have a special policy attached onto our homeowners policy. So there are companies that specialize in insurance, and yeah, so we do have a special policy. It's a good idea to do it. I mean, I think that although a lot of the stuff I collect can't be replaced. So it's more like at least get the money that you put into it back, but like you'll never find another one of it. Like if it gets damaged or stolen or something, you'll never get it back. It's the only one in the world or whatever. So, but it's more like, give you peace of mind that if something did happen that you can, get at least compensated for it.
Right.
Yeah. When I was getting my homeowner's insurance, I was telling my my agent about what I had. He's like, I don't understand. See, he had to actually come over here and see it for himself. And now ever since then, he's been asking me like every couple of months, hey, can my son come over and look at your collection?
Yeah.
Yeah, and we had to roll it into the homeowners, and he just couldn't get his head wrapped around. You have a what from an original cell from the Star Wars holiday, what?
Yeah.
Well, that wraps up our New Year's. Wow, that's old. Okay, here we go.
That's what you call cut and paste.
Yes, I know.